Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Sarah here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Alan, and he's selling his SaaS business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. Welcome to the show, Alan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Sarah.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about your business. Before we dive in, let's go over a brief summary of the business. This is a SaaS business in the social media niche, created in February 2015. The average monthly revenue of this business is $3,278, and it has an average of $2,402 per month in net profit, and that is based on a 7-month pricing period. Included in the sale of the business are domain, all source code and related scripts, email list, social media accounts of YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 47250 to learn more about the business or place a refundable deposit to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing. Now that I've given a general overview of the business, let's dig into the interview. So start me off. Tell me a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses.
Sure. That's a great rundown. So thanks so much for providing that background and context. It's actually interesting to hear you give it a rundown from that perspective, coming from the inside. It's like someone else reading the label to you.
I get that.
So yeah, it's really cool. And so, I've been building SaaS products for the last, 7 years now, almost 8 years, since 2012. And the business that's listed on Empire Flippers was my second SaaS business. And I started it in 2015. And it serves customers mostly like the e-commerce and online brands that are using social media to reach more customers. And it helps them actually leverage their customers and their fans or their employees as social media brand advocates or brand ambassadors. So it helps these brands reward people for sharing content on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or for engaging with the brand's Instagram account. And there's a point system. They earn points for sharing. And then there's a reward system built into the platform where they can exchange those points for rewards. And I was inspired early on by Basecamp at 37 Signals. I watched a video with DHH from Basecamp when I was in college in 2009. And when he broke down the economics of subscription software business and the beauty of recurring revenue. And he also, with Basecamp philosophy, they are very kind of contrarian against venture capital and they're very pro bootstrapping. And once he kind of broke down the path that is like bootstrap, independent B2B subscription software or SaaS, I knew that it was something that I wanted to try myself. And so in 2012, I started my first app. 3 years later, out of the same company was born this current app that's for sale on Empire Flippers. Both are still profitable and up and running and profitable today, which is something I'm proud of. And since gone on to start 2 more products, and one of them in 2017 just exploded and became my fastest growing business, and it's taken my focus. And that's where I decided, I wasn't doing justice or proper service to these other products and customers. And that led to the decision to list it on the Empire Flippers marketplace. And that's where we are today.
Awesome. Well, in a way, you've answered some of my questions down the line, so I'll try not to badger you too much with repeating yourself. Interestingly, I really like that story you just shared of, I think, watching that video in 2009 and sort of waking up to the power of SaaS. That's interesting for me. I don't always get to talk to a lot of SaaS people. So I'm curious, why do you think SaaS is great for those interested in online business?
The predictability of recurring revenue, I think, is something that just, it's so valuable. And once you get new customers and, as long as you control your churn, that recurring revenue is just something that you can really build a business on. I think business expenses are largely recurring. And so if your income is lumpy and unpredictable and all over the place month to month, then it can actually be very challenging sometimes to build a business. Other things that I like about SaaS I have a lot of friends in the entrepreneur or digital nomad space who are doing things like e-commerce or Amazon. You don't have to worry about inventory. So it's the cash flow cycle is positive. And it's just a really well traversed space. I think there's the SaaS community and the bootstrap independent software vendor kind of community is full of great resources and great entrepreneurs who are sharing their stories. And yeah, it's been a great business to be a part of. And yeah, I've stayed with SaaS and I'm happy to make my living in it. So does that answer the question? I kind of talked around it there.
No, I think it's a very good answer. Yeah, it's exactly why it's a good model for someone like you who's been deep in it for a while, but also good for people who might be new to the online business space and going, where do I belong and what monetization is best for me. So yeah, it's good. Now, this might feel like an obvious question, but there's a lot of people from the outside of your business. So walk me through how this business primarily makes money.
Sure. So as I mentioned before, it's a social media brand ambassador platform. So it's a way for brands to reward their fans or their customers or their team members or employees for sharing content on social media or engaging with the brand's Instagram account. We call these, your team, your ambassadors. And again, they get their points and reward system. So they earn points for sharing, and then they can exchange those points for rewards from your brand. So you set up like a little e-commerce store inside the app. We charge right now, we have 4 different pricing plans depending on how big your team is. So there's the entry level tier, which is up to, I think, like 200 team members, and up to 500 team members, and up to 1,000 team members. It goes up from there. And, true to form, I think, with this product, it's the kind of thing that we've left a lot on the table in terms of room to optimize revenue, room to optimize conversions, room to optimize growth. It's just kind of a lot of money is just being left on the table, frankly, right now, because managing this business hasn't been our main focus. But despite that, churn has been low. It's been growing consistently year over year for the last 3 years, despite lack of dedicated management. And so I think for that reason, I thought, this is something that's in a good place. I feel good about selling it to a new manager, new owner, and supporting them as they grow it.
You just hit on something. I was going to ask you about it later, but I think it's time now. You're talking about that room left to grow on the table. So talk to me a little bit about that. If you were going to keep this business, what are some ways that you would try to grow it?
Sure. I think the first thing I would do is I would just talk to our customers. So we have, 25 to 30 customers. These are all small businesses. And I would talk to them, get a sense for their needs, get a sense for which ones are the most profitable and the highest paying, and then figure out, where they're going, where they're congregating online, how they heard about the product, and then targeting more of them. I would do that largely through, there's a few channels that I think are great for like SMB SaaS. I think content is great. It can take a little while to ramp up, but we've done a good amount of content, written content and YouTube content, and then we embed in the written content. We get kind of, cross-post juice from across YouTube and Google SEO. I would also do, I think webinars are a great channel, something that, frankly, I've seen other SaaS founders do to great effect on similar products at similar price points, and something that I never necessarily myself took the time to get right. Honestly, this is a shortcoming of my own. I've always been more of like the product leaning, kind of like developer, designer, product person. And, I've seen people who are much more, fish in water, so to speak, much more natural internet marketing. And I just kind of excited to just think about what a really talented internet marketer could do with a product like this. But, I think it's some combination of paid traffic to content, webinar funnels. I think, whatever like Russell Brunson has done with ClickFunnels, I think is an amazing model for independent SaaS entrepreneurs to follow.
Great. Well, I'm interested here. You've been pretty deep into SaaS for a while and, have had an interesting journey with this business. Is there anything you learned from this business that you'd apply to future sites or businesses? Or, what did you learn from building this that just really seemed to work for you?
One lesson that I learned, I built this product originally with a team in Vietnam. And as I mentioned to you before the call, I'm in Ho Chi Minh City right now. I'm from the US originally. I've been living in Vietnam for the last 6 years. And I scaled up a team of, not a huge team, but it was 5 people in Vietnam product side, and worked with them for 3 years on the product. And it got to the point in 2017, 2018 where, from a code quality standpoint, the product was like a leaky bucket. There were a lot of bugs. It was kind of like you plug one hole and another thing would pop open. And so even though the cost savings were there on a monthly basis or like on a salary, like on an hourly or monthly basis, like the Vietnamese engineers were much cheaper, the end product, it was like on a foundation of sand. It was hard. At a certain point, we couldn't even tackle new features on our feature roadmap and wish list because we had to do so much maintenance and bug support, and it just became a challenge to manage. And so what ended up happening in the fall of 2018, I connected with a friend, actually, a close friend from Toronto, and brought him on board as a CTO, like technical partner. And we actually together, we refactored the code base entirely from scratch, rebuilt the app completely. And since then, it's just been about a year with this new code base, super stable, super solid. Around the same time, as I mentioned before, transitioned into another business that had took off. It was my fastest growing business. And this one, while it's still growing and it's been super low maintenance with this new code base. And I spend maybe 30 minutes, somewhere between 20 minutes to an hour every week responding to support tickets. And my development partner spends, I don't even know if he's had to put in any work on the code base in over 2 months or something. So, it's super automated, super low management overhead right now. There are some things that I think, wish list features and also like, optimizing pricing and changing the pricing tiers. There are some things that I think, absolutely could be invested in. I think you could double the revenue on this business pretty quickly. I just had the chance to do it because just a lack of bandwidth to devote to it. Yeah, that's something, all that to tie back to the question. One thing I learned is even though cost savings are great with Southeast Asian developers, I'd say the quality of code output with working with like a talented Western engineer has in my experience been worth every penny. So yeah.
I think that's a great lesson learned. I'm curious, this is kind of almost thinking back a little bit further. Is there advice that you would give to our listeners that you wish you had known when you'd started?
Yeah, it's obviously related to my previous answer. I wish that I had just started with a Western engineer before going for the cost savings of Southeast Asian developers. But there's another lesson that I learned working on this product was we invested a lot early on in like a meticulous front end design, like meticulous UI and like a really polished dashboard design. And we did it kind of from scratch. And I realized that was unnecessary and burdensome and slower because, we designed everything in like Sketch, and then we had to have a front end engineer turn that into workable front end components. And, it really didn't serve us that much. It cost a lot in terms of time and dollars. But at the end of the day, there's a bunch of great front end resources, like, UI kits and component kits, like customized Bootstrap templates and stuff. And I would just take components as much as possible, especially for a B2B app where like user experience is important, but like user interface, like, aesthetics, you don't have to build everything. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So today it's easier and easier to build valuable products by piecing together things off the shelf from other developers that have come before you. And so I would focus as much as possible on standing on the shoulders of giants in those wherever you can. And then, it's like building something with Legos. The end result can be unique and creative and valuable, but the components themselves are all you can plug and play. So we learned that lesson the hard way. And I guess the beauty of buying a business from someone like Empire Flippers or off the Empire Flippers marketplace is, you kind of get to shortcut those expensive learnings and go straight from, we've gone from 0 to 1.5 or 1, and then you can take it from there.
Excellent answer. I like the Lego analogies. That's pretty cool. I know that you've talked about this just a little bit, but I still want to open the floor just in case we've missed anything. Talk to me a little bit about, where the majority of your traffic's coming from and what you're doing currently in terms of marketing.
Sure. So actually, I'll say in the last year and a half, I haven't done anything with marketing. This product has very seriously been in autopilot maintenance mode since the crypto run up of 2017. That's the market that my new business is in. And so since 2017, 2018, it's been largely just legacy word of mouth growth. And then also some investment that I made early on in, as I mentioned earlier, YouTube videos and written content in the niche. So, I took the time to basically develop I think it's like a 5-part video series on YouTube and wrapped it up into an extensive, long form content on my website, and then embedded the YouTube videos. And then I also, wrapped that up into an ebook, and it can use that ebook as a lead magnet on social media. And I'd done that before, but that hasn't, that I think we have like 15 or 1600 people on the email list now, which is, I don't know the last time they were emailed. So there's a lot of like I said, a lot of potential energy that's just laying dormant in different pockets of the business here, waiting to be unlocked. Yeah, content and SEO across written content and YouTube had been to date where I'd gotten.
Great. So this is jumping back a little bit on the other side of opportunities here. We always have to cover risks. So, what do you think are the biggest risks with the business that a buyer should be aware of?
With this, earlier on, there were issues with, because this is in the social media space, so rely some amount on social media APIs, data from Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Earlier on, we were also writing content to the social media networks via the API. So with an API, this is an oversimplification, but broadly, you can think of two-way street. It's writing and reading. Writing is posting something to the network from a third-party app, and then reading is reading data from a network from a third-party app. And earlier on, we read and write to Facebook and Twitter, and then Instagram we just read because Instagram doesn't have write access for third-party developers. And then over time, we changed that model because the writing to third-party APIs is starting to get locked down. So we worked how the software works. All that to say that these social media APIs historically can be moving targets. The way that we have it set up now, and the way that all these social media platforms, they do publish their API roadmaps so you can see future changes, and we're future-proof for the foreseeable future across all three networks. So there's no inherent risk right now, but that would be one thing historically in the past that had been an issue and something to keep an eye on for any business. But it's similar. It's like a platform dependence question. It's the same thing that like an FBA seller, the fact that they're dependent on like Amazon traffic is a similar kind of platform dependence. So any business will have its platform risks generally.
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier you were saying that things have been in autopilot mode. So I think from this question, maybe think for the perspective of the buyer. Can you describe the amount and type of work you do on the business for maintenance? So, again, I think you were in autopilot, like you said, but if a buyer were to come in and try to think about, okay, what kind of work or maintenance might I have to do on that? Maybe just talk to me from that perspective.
So, on my end, there's like the business side, and then there's the development and technical side. On the technical side, if a bug occurs or if there's something unexpected or someone's having some issues, there's small work to be done on that end. It's been relatively stable, so that hasn't been an issue lately. Also on the technical side, we have one customer who's high paying, about $1,000 a month, and they requested new features, and we gave them a quote to actually, we charged them to develop it. Like, we wrote out a list together. We got on a call with them, spec'd it out, the features they wanted, and then gave them a quote for how much we would charge them to build the features, charge them for our developers' time, and they paid us. And so we developed that for them. That's something we've actually done a few times in this business. Like I think 3 different times we've had customers fund the development of new features, which is cool. So there's that on the technical side. I would also, there's a lot that you could do to improve it. So I think on the technical side, I guess that strays away from maintenance and into like, new feature territory. So I'll leave that for another question. And then on my end, on the business side, answering support tickets, a lot of times it's ambassadors that are confused about how something works. Sometimes we get inquiries for demo calls. So schedule those as well. Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's pretty much those 2 things.
Okay. Would you say there's any skills or requirements for someone not familiar with this niche or business model in order to buy this business?
Yeah. Being a software product, I would recommend someone with technical proficiency, either a developer themselves or have worked in software. Yeah, software products is, it's unique and there's unique challenges to it. And buying a software business could be a way to practice, but hopefully if you have some amount of experience in it already, that's all the better. And then also frankly, this business has been built with like a strong emphasis on product and tech. And I think if someone came in more of a marketing hat, I think it would be relatively straightforward for this is an extreme example, but like, what would Russell Brunson do? If like a Russell Brunson or a Ryan Dice came in and with this exact same product, like how quickly this product would grow to 7-figure annual revenue, like not even exaggerating, but like, the potential's there. It's just the right internet marketing could unlock it. So that's my take on who might be a good fit for this.
Yeah, absolutely. So how much support are you offering buyers?
It'll vary, but, we're here to help. We want it to be a success. We have good relationships with our customers, and we'd love to have a good relationship with the buyer as well. We'll be here for calls, can orchestrate a technical handoff period, and obviously, walk you through the platform entirely. And yeah, do what we can to make sure it's a success. Our names are on it. Our names are tied to it. And so if it goes on to be successful, then it's a win-win all around.
Awesome. A few roundup questions here. Would you commit to a non-compete?
Yeah, I'd commit to a non-compete. Also, just knowing the product that I have now that I've been working on since this business that I'm listing with you guys is not competitive. But, that's going to be my main focus for the next 3 to 5 years. And, new buyer will be made aware of that. And it's, again, not competitive. But yeah, I'll do non-compete and they'll know that I'm working on something else entirely different now, too.
Okay. Are you open to something like an earn-out?
I would be open to something like an earnout. Yeah, I'd prefer not to. And it looks like we're getting a good amount of inbound interest. So, cash offers rule, but I'd be open to an earnout. I'd be open to some amount of, a retained equity agreement or something also. But yeah, looking for cash offers primarily.
Personal questions here. Is there anyone who inspired you while you were building this business or that our listeners might like as well?
Oh, where to begin? Yeah, DHH and Jason Fried from Basecamp. I already mentioned DHH. They're really, the champions, the OG Godfather champions of the bootstrap B2B SaaS world. Nathan Barry from ConvertKit is an amazing story, and how he's grown ConvertKit is inspiring. Jason Cohen from SmartBear, WP Engine, also OG in the bootstrap software space. Paul Graham, the founder of ViaWeb and founder of Y Combinator, just startup legend. And every essay he writes is just so lucid and clear and inspires me to keep building. I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, those guys are all, the Buffer guys, Joel Cascione, and the guys from Groove HQ and Groove Blog. There's so many great people in the SaaS world, and a lot of people share what they're working on, and it's a great ecosystem to get inspiration from. Indie Hackers is another one. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It kind of relates to this next one here. So I'll try not to badger you again about communities. This tends to be part of the question, but tell me a little bit about, are there any software or tools that really helped you at the start of running this business?
Software or tools that helped us?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, there's, like I said, we're standing on the shoulders of giants a lot. So, we use Intercom for the ticketing system. Their software has been, really valuable for us in communicating with our customers, and their content has been really valuable for us in learning how to design and build products and support users. Obviously, all the technical products that we're using in the stack, so GitHub. We have SMS messages run through our system. So we're using, transactional SMS from Twilio and transactional email from SendGrid. Both of those products are really cool APIs. I started using, before this business, on my earlier business, I was using Photoshop for UI UX. And once I started this business, it was the first time I started using Sketch. And it was like a breath of fresh air. Doing user interface design in Sketch is refreshing compared to Photoshop, which is simply not designed for it at all. So yeah, I'm a big fan of a lot of the software tools that I've used. The beauty of running a software business is once you get going in any creative endeavor, once you start, playing guitar, you're going to listen to guitar a little bit differently from then on, once you've had a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. And once you start building, software products, you look at software differently. You think about the interactions, you think about the onboarding experience, you think about the, onboarding emails and transactional emails that they send you. And it's cool. It deepens your appreciation for the world of products that are built around you. You can take inspiration from anywhere.
I love that answer. That's awesome. This is a question we don't normally ask, so, we'll see how it goes. But I'm just thinking, listening to your story and hearing in the beginning how you've been splitting time between Saigon and the US, but you've spent a lot of time in Saigon. I feel like, we have a lot of listeners that are interested in doing what you're doing, where it's kind of the nomad approach or the kind of expat approach to building a business. Just give me a little insight there about what it was like to build your business from a different country, how that helped you, maybe what were the pros and cons of up and moving your life somewhere else in order to, get your business started.
Yeah, great question. Oh, I could speak for ages on that.
I know. This one's a tough one. So I totally threw you out there with it, but roll with it.
It's a conversation I've been having. I quote moved back to the US in September and just came back here for the month of January, and I back to Ho Chi Minh City in January, and I realized I'm like, shoot, I'm a fish back in water here. I think I'm going to move back. I'm Vietnamese American, so we'll start there. My parents are from Vietnam, but I was born in the US. And in college, along with the DHH video I read for our work week and Rich Dad Poor Dad, and realized that, I had to do something that was entrepreneurial. I had to own my time. I had to own my equity in my business. I had to do something that would decouple my income from the hours that I worked. And I wanted to do it in a way that was location independent and gave me the freedom to do things like go to Vietnam if I wanted to. And when I built my first business in 2012 and then bootstrapped it, so no outside capital. And, in 2 years later, that business was making $2,000 a month, and I was splitting that with a partner. And so we were living off of about $1,000 a month each. And I didn't want to live in my parents' basement anymore. And $1,000 goes a long way in Vietnam. And so I decided to check out Vietnam and fell in love with it. And, 6 years went by and here we are. So the cost savings, leveraging that something people call lifestyle arbitrage. If you're earning dollars but spending Vietnam dong, you can really take advantage of some of the cost of living differences. And so that's the benefit. Culturally and spiritually, being Vietnamese American, coming to Vietnam, there's a huge connection there. Socially, Vietnam is a super tight-knit, fun community. It's how I came to know the Empire Flippers team in the first place. Justin and Joe comes by from the Philippines often. And so it's a really tight-knit, like, digital nomad crew, internet entrepreneur crew. And then, so on the good side, you have all those things. And then on the downside, being in Vietnam, my relationships in the US are harder to maintain. You can't call your parents after lunch or, drive down the highway to celebrate your niece's 10th birthday, with the family, as easy as I can when I'm in the US. So that's one of the challenges of building abroad. And then, in the same token, like when I'm in Vietnam and I want to do customer calls, having to schedule odd hour calls, after 8, 9, 10 p.m. into the wee hours of the morning sometimes. So like everything, there's trade-offs, advantages and disadvantages to being abroad. But ultimately, I think I wouldn't trade this international experience for anything. It's been such a big part of my life and will continue for the foreseeable future.
Oh, that's awesome. I really appreciate that perspective. And I know there's so many people listening to this want to do just that and kind of need the encouragement to do it. So thank you. Well, kind of wrapping up here, bringing it back to the business selling at hand here. So putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think this is a business worth buying?
Oh man, it's so nascent right now. It's still sub $3,500 a month. And it would be at that level, I think it would be really straightforward with dedicated management to, I'm not just saying that, but they're all large and small numbers. It's easier to multiply small numbers. So I think you could, buy from the marketplace today, invest, 12 to 24 months, doubling, tripling, quadrupling the size of the business and either hold it as a cash cow or flip it again. I think it's at a great place it's just a solid foundation to build off of, solid code base, really solid customers. And it's such a small, low price point right now that it would be trivial to get several multiples of that returned with minimal marketing investment.
All right. Alan, before we sign off, you had mentioned something about new features earlier. I wanted to make sure that I gave you the chance to talk about it before we go. So paint me a picture of that and what you think the potential is in terms of new features.
Sure. Well, this is actually, gosh, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but not only new features could be built into this, but there's a meaningful new feature that we built that we haven't even marketed, and it's not even on the homepage of the website now. It's a big new feature. It's like a whole new pillar inside the product, and it's an Instagram engagement campaign that lets the brand connects their Instagram account, and then every time the brand makes a post content to their brand Instagram, the ambassadors all get a text message saying, company X just posted on Instagram, like and comment within an hour to earn points. And we check for updates on that post. And then when the users like and comment, then we reward them with points. Huge new feature. People are already using it. Our customers are already using it. And it's not even being marketed on the website. That's how much low-hanging fruit is being left on the table right now. It's legitimately borderline embarrassing. So I would do that. I would start with just getting everything on the website and marketing it and creating content around it. I think really you could do, because of some of the software that's available today with building cross-platform mobile apps really inexpensively with React Native or Flutter, I think there's a lot of benefit that could be, or a lot of value in creating a very minimal, doesn't have to be super feature filled, but a minimal mobile apps, like Ambassador mobile apps for iOS and Android using, one of these cross-platform libraries. I think optimizing price points. I know for a fact that there's at least one customer of ours, one of the largest outdoor bow hunting companies in the US. They work out every day, day in, day out. And I know that, for example, you could talk to them and see, what their appetite would be for, new features and increase at what new price points. And I legitimately think you could 1.5 or maybe even 2x revenue just by playing around with the current price points with existing customers. So I'd experiment in action as well.
Awesome. I appreciate having you on here, Alan. This has been an awesome interview and, really looking forward to seeing how things play out for you in the deal process.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this has been a great walk down memory lane and great recap. So thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To check out more details on this business or place a deposit, visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 47250. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. By placing a deposit, you'll be given everything you need to know about the business and can start your due diligence. Until next time.